Welcome to our deep dive, presented by Safety One Source. We're here for safety pros, risk managers, really anyone looking to sharpen their safety knowledge.
That's right.
And today, we're digging into something foundational. OSHA Standard 29 CFR 1910.1.
The very beginning, really.
Exactly. It's kind of like the why behind so many safety rules we see every day.
Yeah, it explains how those first OSHA standards actually came into being.
Our mission today, then, is pretty clear. Figure out how OSHA got those initial standards up so fast and, what kinds of standards they were.
And it really goes back to the law itself, the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970.
The OSH Act, right.
Yeah. Section 6A of that act, well, it gave the Secretary of Labor a pretty tight deadline, just 2 years.
2 years to establish national safety standards. Wow.
2 years. The goal was clearly speed, getting a baseline of familiar rules in place quickly.
Okay, 2 years is ambitious. How did they actually manage that? Building a whole safety framework seems like it would take much longer.
Well, they didn't exactly start from, scratch. They were strategic about it.
Okay.
Section 6A basically told them to adopt two kinds of standards that already existed.
Pre-existing standards. That makes sense. What was the first type?
The first category was national consensus standards.
National consensus standards. Okay, so the name kind of implies it, but what does that mean exactly? Not brand new ideas.
Not at all, no. These were safety and health standards where the affected industries and other groups had already reached substantial agreement.
So like established best practices, things people were already doing, perhaps.
Precisely. Think about maybe machine guarding rules that most manufacturers already recognized or were ideally using. There was already a consensus there.
Got it. So leverage the agreement that's already out there. It's like hitting the ground running. What was the other category?
The second type was establish federal standards.
Federal standards. So rules already on the books from other agencies.
Exactly. Safety and health rules that were already required under other federal laws or regulations.
Yeah.
Maybe Department of Transportation rules that applied to some workplace activities.
Right.
So instead of starting over, OSHA just incorporated these existing federal requirements where they fit.
Okay, so it was a mix. Standards with broad industry agreement and standards already mandated by the government. It's really interesting that the focus was so much on adoption, not invention.
It was pragmatic. The main driver was getting protections in place efficiently to improve worker safety and health.
But I wonder, did that approach have any downsides? Like adopting existing stuff might mean you're not getting the absolute latest thinking, maybe.
That's a really sharp point, yes. While it was fast, it did mean some initial standards might not have covered, say, newer hazards or the very latest safety tech.
Okay.
It sort of set the stage for OSHA to refine and update things later on, which of course they have.
So for you safety professionals and risk managers listening in, understanding this history is actually quite useful, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Knowing the initial rules came from this foundation, this pre-existing consensus and federal groundwork, it gives context to why some regs look the way they do.
Right. It shows the original intent was really about building on practices that were hopefully already accepted or even implemented.
It wasn't just dreamt up in isolation.
No, definitely not. And, if you think about it, this connects to what we all do now in safety.
How so?
Well, it raises that question, right? How can we use that same principle today when we're developing our own safety programs in our companies?
Yeah.
How do we best build on established practices, get that consensus, that buy-in from everyone involved to make real safety improvements happen effectively and, quickly?
That's a great point. So wrapping up our deep dive today, those initial OSHA standards weren't pulled out of thin air.
Not at all.
They were put together rapidly, thanks to the OSH Act's directive, by adopting these national consensus standards and established federal standards.
It allowed for a quick start,
Yeah.
using rules that were already somewhat familiar across industries, a foundation to build on.
And maybe a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Consider how that core idea, building on existing knowledge, fostering consensus, how relevant is that still for creating truly effective safety programs in your own workplaces today?
Something definitely worth thinking about.